Daniela, it is so good to be with you.
Hi, Hal. So lovely to meet you. Yeah, I've wanted to meet you for a long time, so this is really awesome for me.
So I'm just going to start. You sent me a letter, and it was one of the most heartfelt, compelling letters that I had ever received. And I mentioned that to you a little bit ago, and you said, "Well, it was all true. It was from the heart, right?" And that's why it came across that way. And you wanted to share your story and be on the podcast, and I was compelled. I was compelled to have you on. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh wow! Oh, thanks, Hal. That means a lot. I really took some time with that letter, and I just wanted to kind of express my gratitude, like for you and the part that you've played in my journey. So yeah, I'm really glad that it landed well, and yeah, I mean, how awesome that I'm here as well. So
Yeah, this is it. This is it. You manifested this. You made it happen. So, but right before we started recording, you said, "Hal, wait, before we start recording, can I share my why with you?" And then after you shared it, I said, "I want you to share your why with everybody." You have a new book coming out. You can pre-order it now. It's called Not My Shame. It's about your journey, what you went through, which is extraordinary, unlike anything I've heard before, and we're going to talk about that. But let's start with where you felt compelled to start before we started the actual podcast, which is sharing your why. So I would love for you to share your why with me again and with our listeners.
yeah, I mean, my why's really strong because I spent so many years in shame, and that my healing only really began when I was able to tell kind of someone what had happened to me, and someone that was external to a mental health professional or someone from my family of origin. And for all those years, it took 17 years from when I actually started to remember what had happened to me as a child, because I actually blocked it out for 10 years into
Mm.
adulthood. Yes, it was a really long time. So if I can, help anyone to realize that it's not their shame, that, I mean, that is my why. And that's why I wrote the book. Perhaps the book that I wish that I'd kind of seen when I was sort of deep in the thick of the shame, really.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing the why. And I literally was teaching yesterday at an online event and talking about how I forgot who I was quoting, but that he or she who has a compelling why can bear anyhow, and that you've got this purpose that you is driving you is really, it's a beautiful thing, and it's going to help you to help a lot of other people. Let's just start right there. So your book, Not My Shame, tells it's really a remarkable story, and it includes the fact that both of your dads were Catholic priests, right? Which that alone I'm like, wait, how does that work? Let's just share your story wherever you think is valuable to start. What compelled you to tell other people? I mean, you've got your why in place, but what's the story? What's the experience that you endured, that you overcame, that you healed from, that led to the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, truth can be stranger than fiction. My biological father was a Catholic priest that left my mum and had nothing to do with us. And my abuser, who was my dad, for most of my life, I thought he was my biological father,
Mm.
was also a former Catholic priest. So that's been really difficult to kind of come to terms with as well, like sort of growing up in a really strict Catholic family, and then this is sort of happening, within that family. So yeah, it's just sort of taken a long time to kind of heal from that as well. So yeah, that's the stranger than fiction part of the story.
So when you say this was happening, it took a long time for you to reconcile that. What is the this that you're speaking of?
So I'm talking about childhood sexual abuse
Mm.
that was happening in the home. And it's taken a really long time for me to come out of my own shame. And even when writing the book, I thought, oh, maybe I could write the book under like a pen name. But then I
Mm.
thought, like, with the title like Not My Shame, it was also the internal journey of getting the confidence to do this. And
Mm.
and as you know, how books don't just magically sell themselves.
No.
If you want a book to do if you want a book to do well, you've kind of got to sort of go out and promote it as well. So it was kind of finding the courage to do that and be so vulnerable with that story.
Mm. So and the abuse was coming from your stepfather, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Who was a Catholic priest at the time that he was abusing you?
Oh,
Is
no,
that
no.
right?
So sorry, just so he had been a former Catholic
Okay.
priest. Yeah.
Got
So
it.
he had left the
Got it.
priesthood and then got together, later with my mother.
And what age was this happening?
Um, So it started when I was 7 to 17.
7 to so for 10 years it went on?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And when you how do you define shame? As someone who's endured it for so long and blocked it out, even or blocked out the memory because of the shame. How would you define shame?
I guess it's that, I don't know, that sort of being terrified that someone's going to find out of like what happened to you, and that somehow there's something wrong with you. And then if anyone knew, that they would think, think sort of less of me.
Mm,
But it's such a, I don't know, it's such an emotion that kind of really keeps you stuck.
yeah.
And all that time that I was living in the shame, I was just living in survival. I wasn't really creating anything in my life. It was just surviving.
And at the time when you were going through it, why didn't you tell anybody? Because of all the reasons you just described, you were just afraid that it would be blamed on you?
I think also when it kind of happens within your family, you
Mm,
kind of still want to protect them.
mm,
They're your sort of family of origin, and
yeah,
rightly or wrongly, you just sort of take on that responsibility of just protecting the whole family, because it's such a difficult, horrible subject. And
yeah,
it and also it doesn't help by some of the reactions that people give you when you do disclose to them. There's lots of like victim blaming, and having now worked with a lot of survivors, like my story's really common, the sense that you don't get the validation. It's almost like, oh no, we don't want to talk about that, don't bring that here, don't say anything, oh, just never think about it again. All those kind of responses are just so unhelpful.
yeah. What did you when did it end? At age 17, or I should say, how did it end? Why did it end?
I think I just think I just got too old for it, if I'm
Oh,
honest.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. I just
Yeah.
think it just naturally, into my teenage years, I got much better at kind of avoiding him,
Mm,
because I'd kind of built up some skills. But I think it just kind of naturally came to an end. And then soon after that, I went off to like university and left the home.
wow.
And and I mean, that's what the really sad thing is, sort of looking back, and then just sort of spent, decades kind of heavy drinking, sort of smoking weed. It sort of took
Mm,
me down this path of just
numbing.
addictions.
Yeah, yeah. And so, uh, the did you feel like a victim? Was that part of your, like, "I'm a victim, woe is me, this is being done to me"? I'm wondering where how you balance those 2 of, like, "This is my fault," and you have shame around it, and or, "I'm a victim, this is wrong what's being done to me." Were both of those mindsets entertained at the same time, or where did victimhood come into play?
So do you mean when I was growing up, or do you mean like later on?
Both. Yeah, both.
Um, I think I think when it was happening to me, it was almost that kind of cognitive dissonance where
Mm,
I think, I must have realized on some level that it was wrong, but almost like you sort of just block it out. And I was also manipulated,
yeah,
to kind of not say anything, almost that, the family will fall apart if you say anything. And as a child, that's a lot of responsibility to take on.
yeah.
But how what's taken a really long time, and this is only like in recent history, is to let go of that victimhood. Because
Mm,
I've been a victim of crime, and my story did go through the legal. It went through the court system as well. But that was what was really hard, was to leave victimhood, and I finally kind of got to the conclusion that I was only really hurting myself by not letting this go.
yeah.
And all that time you're stuck again, you're not really creating anything. You're just sort of holding on to the past, thinking of the past, yeah, as you said, the woe is me story. And I think once I was able to gently start to let that go, I could sort of start to bring my life forward.
And when did that happen? That's
um,
just been in the last few years?
yes.
Okay, okay, and if you don't mind sharing, how old you are now, so we have a little bit of
Oh,
timeline?
so I'm 49 now.
Okay.
So I'm 50 this year. And I think there was something about so I'm 50 in October, but there was this real determination the last kind of year or so, like sort of like, I can't take my childhood issues into the next decade of my life.
Mm,
There feels like this real urgency to really kind of alchemize this, do something with this pain, like turn it into purpose and
mhm,
move on with my life, because this has taken decades of my life. This is, there has to be more to life than trauma recovery.
What's the effect been over the last, so it stopped when you were 17, you're about to be 50, so that's 32 years, and you've struggled with childhood trauma for the last 32 years. What's the struggle? How's it shown up for you? What's the struggle been like? And I'm just thinking for my listeners who have endured childhood trauma, and for those that haven't, trying to understand, what of those 30 years, yeah, how has the abuse from age 7 to 17, how has that shown up for you in the last 30 years of adult life?
I mean, because I went into adulthood with really like low self-esteem, low confidence, low assertiveness. I was bullied at work, and actually that's when I started remembering. I was bullied at work for years. Ended up having a mental breakdown in my 20s. Um, so it's just had such a profound effect. And then remembering, and then it's kind of what do you do with that? Then trying to, although I'd kind of remember, still trying to like block it away. And I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. And that's why the book's actually being released on the 27th of June, which is PTSD Awareness Day. So it kind of felt like a natural date to release the book. But it has had such a profound effect on my life. And yeah, living that kind of victimhood well, for decades, really, the repetitive thoughts, the past. And also, if I'm honest, there's a part of me that thinks, oh, it's been so hard. Why should I bother? Why should I bother trying to make anything of my life? Because it's been so unfair. But that doesn't get you anywhere either. So
Yeah,
it's kind of,
that's the victimhood that we just spoke of, right? Yeah. So how did the healing begin? What was the catalyst? What was was there a defining moment? Was there, I know you talk about the small the power of small steps in healing and transformation. What was the beginning of transformation like, and how did that play out? What did that look like for you?
I mean, I did, go into formal therapy, like talking therapies. And then I read, this is where you come in, Hal. I'd read hundreds of self-help books. And in 2019, my brother had read The Miracle Morning, and he recommended it to me. And when I read it, what was so good about your book was it was so practical that you could kind of do it straight away. And the next thing, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. I'm sort of meditating, journaling, reading, and that really, really helped because it was so practical. And I started to feel like I had a bit more ownership of my own life. And I've been talking a lot about victimhood. That was
Yeah.
kind of a step towards being a creator of my own life. So yeah, thank you for
You are
writing
so
it.
welcome. You're so welcome. Um, you talk in your book about breaking generational cycles. How did you overcome the shame and the silence that had been ingrained in your family? Because you mentioned it wasn't just you, it was part of the bigger story.
Yeah, I think realizing that I didn't have to repeat the patterns.
Mm,
I've got two daughters, and I'm absolutely determined that they are going to grow up so differently and
yeah.
have the tools. Because if I hadn't have done all this inner work, and it's not easy. I mean, I'm sure you've done a lot of inner work yourself, but it's so worth it in the end. Like keep stepping, through that discomfort and reading the books and learning. But I just had to break the pattern because otherwise, I would have just unconsciously just. I don't think I would have abused my own children, but I would have had all the unconscious stuff that I would have just passed down to the next generation. And the way that my family dealt with stuff was just to stick your head in the sand and not talk about difficult things or anything really important. And I wanted to break that pattern as well.
How old are your kids?
So they're 11 and 9,
11 and 9. Boy, girl,
two girls.
two girls,
Yeah.
11 and 9. Amazing. Okay. Um, so you mentioned Miracle Morning was a big catalyst for the transformation. And if I understand correctly, it was you felt ownership of your life, right? Ownership of, can you expand on that more? Like what did that look like? What did that feel like? And to add another question on after that, like the Miracle Morning, how did that impact you specifically? I want to understand more about that.
Okay.
Actually, let's just start there, and then I've got a follow up question on other daily habits or rituals or routines that you do to manage overcoming the trauma.
Sorry, Hal. Can we just go back to the first question? And what was the
Yeah,
first question?
let's start with the first one, which is so you mentioned that the Miracle Morning was like a big catalyst in your transformation, and that it kind of helped you gain ownership over your mindset, your day, your life. I would love to understand that more, and maybe selfishly as the Miracle Morning author, right, creator. Yeah, so specifically, I'd love to understand more how the Miracle Morning helped you.
I think because it felt like I was being intentional. So
Mm,
rather than doing that thing where you wake up, check your phone, go
yeah.
straight to work, taking that time, and I found it quite magical actually. And what I found actually, the day seemed to flow better. I just
Mm,
felt better when I did it. And also, I have sort of data for that because the days that I wouldn't do it, I just didn't quite feel as in. I'll say, yeah, I'll use the term in flow,
mm,
and then the day just goes so much better. And then I can almost like rehearse my day, where in the journal, like today's going to be a good day. If anything's coming up, I can kind of say how I want to show up.
yeah.
Obviously, the meditation for me has been huge, especially for someone that has mental health difficulties. Meditating has been so helpful for me.
Yeah. What I got from what you said, what comes up for me is it's the idea of starting your day with intention versus reaction, right?
Yeah.
Intention versus reaction. You're intentional about, and it's just a sense of empowerment. Like, wow, I'm taking care of myself. I know you've talked about self care before. Where or what are there other self care practices that you do outside of the Miracle Morning?
I mean, I'm trying to think, what else do I do? I suppose, I mean, they're the main ones actually, like obviously exercise, reading. So you've got your journaling. I'm trying to think what else I do. I think there is something that's really helped actually, is just becoming aware of that voice in my head that takes me back to the old story. So I've
Yeah.
got a really, really strong sadness story, and
Mm,
it's got such a big power, and it really sort of puts me back in that story. Um, so it's kind of becoming aware of that, and just gently, like with self-compassion, saying to myself, Daniela, that's not going to serve us. I know it's been sad, and
mm,
almost acknowledging that sadness, but
mm,
sort of saying, like, we're not going to keep going down into this sadness, because then it just kind of pulls me back into depression again.
yeah.
So I think being very mindful of how I'm thinking as well.
Yeah, it seems like a heightened level of awareness where you're from what you just said, right? Danielle, this isn't going to serve us right now, right?
Yeah.
You're separating yourself from the thoughts and realizing that you are the thinker, right? You are consciousness, you're the thinker, not the thoughts, and that you can choose to evaluate the thoughts that you're habitually thinking, right? That the mind's on autopilot from your past and yeah, and go, "Hey, these aren't serving me. I'm gonna not go down that road again and again and again." Um, talk
Yeah.
about faith. Oh, go ahead. Was there anything you wanted to
Sorry,
say
no,
on
I
top
was
of
just
that?
going to say it's so important, because if I'm honest, I've been thinking the same thoughts for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it just and in all this time, my life's just been going, and I'm stuck. Just stuck in the past. So that was been really important, to just become, just as you said, to become that observer.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned thinking the same thoughts for 20 years, and that's you're not the only one. That's most of us, right? We continue to repeat the same stories. You mentioned stories, right? Of this is what happened to me. This is what it meant. This is how it impacted me. This is why I am the way that I am. And as long as we perpetuate those stories, we create our own reality based on the thoughts and the stories that we continue to allow ourselves to perpetuate. What about affirmations? Like for me, that's where affirmations are so powerful because I get to write the new story. I go, okay, these are the thoughts that serve me. These are the beliefs that serve me, right? I'm putting them in writing, and then I'm going to read these every day, and I'm going to reprogram my subconscious mind and replace that negative, self-destructive thinking with empowering, inspiring thinking. Are affirmations a tool that have been part of it for you, or is it more the meditation?
I love affirmations, and I've stolen one of yours, Hal, which is one of my absolute favourites, which is, I love the life I have whilst creating the life of my dreams,
Mm,
because it's such a great affirmation, because it absolutely honours everything that you have in your life right now, but
yeah,
also having that forward focus, whilst
yeah,
creating that life of your dreams.
yeah.
So
I
that's
love that.
cool.
Yes, love the life you have while you create the life of your dreams. And most people are waiting till they create the perceived life of their dreams where they allow themselves to love the life that they have. Yeah, I'd love to talk about your faith. I know faith was a complicated part of your story. How did you rebuild your faith, spirituality after betrayal from your own father?
I mean, it did take a long time, because for a long time I was really angry. I was like, well, God can't love me. Like, and actually I was like, well, actually, I don't even believe in God anymore. It was
Oh,
because it
wow.
was such a sort of betrayal. But I think this journey has led me down. I eventually trained to be a yoga teacher because yoga really helped. Actually, yoga was the first time I realized my chronic like overthinking. I remember like lying in shavasana, and all these like thoughts were coming in, and like the teacher saying, relax your mind, and I'm like, whoa. I think it was that awareness of like, it's just as soon as I'd wake up in the morning, the thoughts would just go
Yeah.
just round and round. So that was my kind of first introduction to kind of mindfulness. And yeah, I kind of went down the yoga route, and I don't know, started kind of finding that connection to, I suppose, God myself, that I didn't have
Mhm.
to go through a priest or a middleman, that
Yeah.
actually like I have a direct connection myself. And
Yeah.
it feels, I don't know, I think this is where the purpose comes in. I feel that this is what I've been called to do. And
Mhm.
although it's been really difficult and I've been refusing that call because of the subject matter and because it's, a really difficult thing to talk about and admit that you've been through, and so publicly as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's, yeah, through meditation, through being quiet, I've kind of found that connection myself.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I forgot who said this, but someone said you are most qualified to help the person that you once were,
Yeah.
right? So you having gone through abuse and trauma and then having healed yourself and figured out what works and what doesn't. And now I love that you found your purpose in simply asking, what have I been through and overcome and healed from that I can now help others do the same. And I think that in and of itself is such a powerful lesson for all of us. And then all of a sudden the trauma serves a purpose. The pain serves a purpose.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because I'm a personal trainer, and for a long time I was, thinking, oh, I'll just grow my personal training business and put my focus there. But
Yeah.
when deep down, it was that I knew what the calling was, but it just felt really difficult, so I was kind of avoiding it. And
Yeah.
then, but the problem with that is that kind of causes low level depression as well, because
Mm.
deep down you're not doing the thing you're meant to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you've got the courage and you are putting it out in the world and you're doing it. Um, so one thing I want to ask about, I know during your journey, you went from surviving to coaching, right? You're already helping other people. I believe it's called spiritual survivors coaching. Is that your coaching practice?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And so how do you help others through your coaching practice?
So I coach people that are ready to be coached,
Mm.
because I'm not a therapist, and there's definitely a place for therapy because I've been through different kind of modalities, and that's been so helpful. But I work with people that are kind of ready to take that step forward to kind of creating that life, looking into the future. And what's great is, as the session starts, I do create a self container where people can kind of talk about things that have happened, if that's what they want.
Yeah.
But as the sessions go on, we just talk much more about the future and goal setting and sort of achieving things in the future. And what's great actually, just for your mental health also, is when you do difficult things, you feel
Yeah.
so good about yourself. And I think the more you do them, this is one of the examples where this feels like a difficult thing. It's great to be on your podcast, but it's not something I've got much experience in, being a podcast guest. So
Yeah.
this is also really exciting. I'm sort of out of my comfort zone, but like, you'll just feel so good having done it rather than
Mm.
just staying in that comfort zone. So it's kind of encouraging people. I see myself as a guide, to kind of guide people out of the maze of just overthinking, mental health, kind of that kind of loop really that people get stuck in.
You mentioned mental health a couple of times. Many people struggling with mental health, I think they feel trapped in cycles of two things: overthinking and inaction, right?
Yeah,
And they perpetuate the two, right? The overthinking leads to the inaction, and then the inaction leads to now you're overthinking about the things that you're not doing that you should be doing, and it's like round and round and round we go. So there are these cycles of overthinking and inaction. How do you get how did taking action, especially doing difficult things that you just mentioned, how that help you break free, and how do people do it? How do you get yourself to do something that you don't feel like doing? So how did you do it? And then I guess that would also probably answer the question is how do people get themselves to do the things that are difficult to do?
I guess it's taking those like little steps out of the
Mm.
comfort zone. Like you don't have to go crazy, but
Yeah.
just kind of, yeah, taking those like incremental like steps. And, it's a bit like kind of fitness training. If a client comes to me and they're, very deconditioned, obviously we start slowly and then they get stronger and we sort of build it up. But it's similar thing with, sort of taking action. You take those small actions, you take more actions, but just knowing that, all the fun, all the achievement, all the excitement is on the other side of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because if when you're stuck in it, you're just living the same life, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, baby steps, right? And you take a little baby step and then you gain a little confidence that, hey, I did that thing that I was out of my comfort zone and now it's in my comfort zone because I did it. I love that. So you've done a lot of coaching, you coach people, you wrote the book. Like what is your what if someone's dealing with childhood trauma or they are dealing with shame, and or both, right? As a result, one from the other. Your book is Not My Shame. What is it going to help people do?
So the first part of the book is my story, and it's kind of like a short memoir that
Mm,
just takes you through the kind of decades and the effects. And the second part of the book is called The Light, where I talk about like lots of different kind of therapies, not so much as a prescription to people, but because everyone's kind of everyone's on a different journey, and some things might work for someone that might not work for others. So yeah, and then so the second section of the book is the kind of light and how we kind of come to terms with kind of what's happened to us. And
so
yeah, again, being that.
is it a combination of like mindset and then also strategy, would you say? Or I'm just trying to understand that the second part of the book, The Light, what is that? What's that teaching people or pointing them towards?
Yeah, there is a sort of teaching element where I've got like an acronym light where we kind of let it go. The I was initially, it's not your fault, which is still very, very valid. But
Very
the I
true.
is kind
Yeah.
of integration.
Mm,
And then we've got G, grow, heal, and then time. Obviously, this, the time it takes, that container of time where we kind of heal. And it, talks about different sort of healing modalities. And also, it's sort of my story as well, how I kind of got to this place, with the hope of kind of inspiring others that you can. I know how hard it is. It's a really horrible thing to have happened and a really difficult thing, and you don't just get over it. It'll always be kind of part of you. But how do we integrate it and
mm.
yeah, just kind of to move, and then it becomes part of you. It's like, I don't know, Hal, if you've heard the broken vase metaphor.
Um, Share it again, please.
So when a vase breaks, rather than trying to sort of glue it all together, we just make something new out of it, and then we can put
Ah,
gold, like the gold in between.
yeah,
So the golden
love that. I
vase.
love that analogy. Um, the oh, I just drew a blank. What was I going to ask you? Light. I loved that acronym. Can you go, obviously with savers? I'm a big fan of acronyms,
Oh
especially
yeah, of
when they're,
course.
yeah. And I like when they're one word acronyms. When people do acronyms and each letter is a sentence, it's like, no, that's too much. I can't remember all of that. I want a word for each letter. Can you go through that again? Go through the light acronym. I really like that.
So L, let it go.
Mm.
I is integration. G is grow. H is heal, and then T is time.
And the idea that you've got to give yourself time, right? It's not an overnight instant thing. Wow. I love
I
that.
think, I mean, I would have loved to have written a book, I don't know, like my 7 steps to like happiness, or I don't know if I guess it just does take time. There's no set prescription for this. Like we're all so different. We've had different experiences. And one
Yeah.
thing that's actually really helped is meeting other survivors. It's sadly there are so many of us out there, and
Yeah.
that's kind of really helped because you don't really have to explain anything. People kind of, they just understand straight away.
Yeah. No, totally. Um, so the book is coming out on and I have one more question after this, so let's not go anywhere. But I just want to make sure. So the book is coming out June 27th, you said?
Yes, that's correct.
And that is what was the day that
Oh, so it's PTSD Awareness Day?
PTSD Awareness Day? And but people can pre-order it on Amazon now, is that right?
Yes, it's available on pre-order on Kindle.
All right, so pre-order if this resonates with you. Not My Shame. Pre-order it now. And the last question I just want to ask you, Daniela, and thank you so much for this today. It's been really, really, really helpful for me to hear your story. If someone listening today is struggling to break free from their past, their shame, their trauma, what is one message that you want them to take away?
That it's not their shame. Yeah, totally. It's, it was never your shame. And we need to give it back to the person it belongs to.
Mm,
And also, I have kind of met people that have, really struggled to tell someone, and it's to find, yeah, just find someone kind of trustworthy, someone that can kind of hold that space for you, because, yeah, unfortunately, a lot of survivors have just had horrible reactions when they have disclosed. So it's
mm.
kind of finding, someone that they can trust.
And would you say for you, did you say your husband was the first person that you told?
So he was the first person outside my family.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then you mentioned also that you've shared it with therapists, correct?
Yeah.
And what's been most valuable for you, for someone listening, to like, if they're afraid to tell a professional, has that been really valuable? And is there a specific type of professional that you look for?
Do you mean like a therapist?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, just to find someone that you connect with, and don't be worried about not just taking the first person,
Mm,
because I think when we're sort of dealing with something so difficult, I think you really do need that sort of human connection with someone. So
yeah.
it's definitely worth spending a bit of time, kind of finding the right person. And I've got a lot of benefit from like internal family systems therapy.
Mm.
I've sort of done talking therapies as well. So it's kind of finding a modality that kind of resonates with you.
Yeah, I love that. And from, what you shared, right? You've read many self-help books, including The Miracle Morning. You integrate The Miracle Morning. You've gone to retreats where they're guiding you through meditation. You've done yoga. You've done various forms of therapy, right? So it's like you've done the work, and it's little pieces. I know personally, was diagnosed with PTSD after my cancer, and things I've gone through. It's like there is no one silver bullet, right? It really is like continuously learning, growing, evolving, letting it go, integrating, growing, healing, and taking time to use your light an acronym. I can't believe I remembered all those. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, which actually says a lot that you really those are great words and a great acronym that I was able to remember it. But yeah, and so thank you for doing the work that you're doing, and thank you for taking your pain, finding your purpose, and being on a mission to help other people.
Thanks, Helen. You've really you hit the nail on the head. There is no silver bullet,
Mm,
and but it does all help, and there is no one thing that's going to suddenly make you feel better. But the journey, I think, the accumulation, or when you keep moving forward and keep doing this stuff, it really does help. And
yeah,
you finally, I mean, well, that's what's really exciting. Like you can leave victimhood and you can become a creator of your own life, which is absolutely fantastic.
yeah. It's what we all deserve. Nothing less than what you just said. Well, goal achievers, members of the Miracle Morning community, friends, family, I love you so much. Go check out "Not My Shame" by Daniela Tilbrook. And if this resonates with you, and if you've have childhood trauma, shame, or if someone you know that you want to gift this book to, go check out the book on Amazon. You can pre-order it today. And thank you so much, Daniela. Thank you for being with me today. I really, really appreciate you and all that you're doing.
Thank you, Howard. It's so great to meet you.
You too.